In 1882, a well-to-do woman's day began quietly, long before any public activity. Night had been spent in a simple nightgown, chosen carefully for the season. During summer months, this garment would usually be made from light cotton or linen, allowing air to pass through and keeping the body cool. In winter, thicker materials such as flannel were preferred, offering warmth during cold nights. Hair was never left loose for sleeping. Instead, it was commonly braided or neatly tucked into a nightcap to keep it clean and controlled. Once awake, personal washing came next. Running water was still uncommon in many homes, even among the comfortable classes, so washing took place at a basin. At the very least, the face was washed, though many women also gave themselves a full sponge bath. Cleanliness was valued, even if the process required effort. After washing, skin care followed, and astringent was applied to the face, much like what we would now call a toner. After that came cold cream or another face cream to protect and soften the skin. With washing complete, the woman prepared to dress for breakfast. The first layer was combination underwear. These knitted garments, which joined a camise and drawers into one piece, became popular in the later Victorian period and were often known as union suits. Their growing use was influenced by dress reform movements, even though reform dress itself never became fully mainstream. Comfort and practicality slowly gained ground. Over the combinations went a petticoat. For breakfast, corsets were often not worn yet, though some women chose soft leisure corsets if they preferred a bit of support. Since breakfast garments might be seen by family members or close acquaintances, the petticoats worn at this time were often made of slightly heavier fabrics. They still featured tucks, lace, or decorative edging at the hem, like other petticoats, but were sturdy enough to look respectable. Next came stockings. These were usually made from silk, cotton, or linen in warm weather, and wool during colder months. They could be plain or richly decorated depending on taste. Because modern elastic stockings did not yet exist, they were held up with garters. Natural rubber elastic was already available, and garters made good use of it to keep stockings securely in place. The final garment for breakfast was a loose outer layer known by many names. It might be called a breakfast jacket, morning jacket, dressing gown, wrapper, or wrapping gown. These garments could be fully loose or slightly fitted and came in either full-length or jacket-length versions. They could be very simple or quite elaborate, depending on the wearer's preference. Across the Victorian era, these garments changed little. The main clue to their exact date usually lay in the sleeve shape, which followed general fashion trends. Slippers completed the breakfast outfit. These could be purchased ready-made, but many women enjoyed sewing or embroidering them at home. They were a popular item for showing needlework skills, and women's magazines frequently printed slipper patterns. Hair for breakfast was styled simply. Some women wore breakfast caps, though these went in and out of fashion, especially in the 1880s. Magazines frequently changed their advice, declaring breakfast caps fashionable one month and outdated the next. Whether a cap was worn or not, hair was always arranged neatly. Although a woman might spend a short time reading or relaxing in these clothes, they were not meant for the rest of a day. Once breakfast and early leisure were over, a change was required. What came next depended on the activities planned, but one thing was certain: it was now time for the corset. The corset served much the same purpose as a modern bra, though it did far more. It supported the bust, strengthened the back, and provided a stable foundation for clothing. Victorian garments were fitted very closely to the body, and this was only possible because the corset held the body in a consistent shape throughout the day. With multiple skirts and layers hanging from the waist, the corset also helped distribute weight, making the clothing far more comfortable than it would otherwise be. The year 1882 fell at the end of the natural form era. This did not mean that fashion followed the body's natural shape entirely, but the curves were gentler than in periods before or after. Large bustles were not yet dominant. Instead, silhouettes were softer and closer to the body. Corsets reflected this with mild belly and hip curves rather than extreme shaping. The bust sat at a fairly natural level, neither pushed very high nor dropped low. With the corset in place, the woman was ready to continue dressing for the day. Once the corset was properly in place, the woman continued dressing for the day. The next layer was a walking-length petticoat, chosen specifically for daytime wear. This petticoat was made of black cotton sateen, a practical yet sturdy fabric that held its shape well. Its cut reflected the fashionable natural form silhouette of 1882. Rather than creating dramatic volume, the petticoat lay smooth and flat across the front of the body, while the back held only a modest amount of gathering. Cotton tapes were used to control this fullness, pulling the fabric close to the body and keeping the outline neat and restrained. Pockets were an essential part of daily clothing, even though they were often hidden from view. While some dresses included pockets sewn directly into the seams, many women preferred separate tie-on pockets. These had been in use for centuries and remained common well into the late 19th century. Tied securely around the waist and worn beneath skirts, they allowed women to carry a surprising number of personal items. Because the pocket was a separate garment, it did not interfere with the drape or fit of the outer clothing, making it both practical and discreet. Over the corset came the corset cover. This simple-looking garment played an important role in the overall outfit. Its first purpose was to soften the lines of the corset so that they would not be visible through the dress. The second purpose was protection. Outer garments were often difficult to clean and, in many cases, could not be washed at all. The corset cover absorbed sweat and body oils, helping to preserve the more expensive clothing worn over it. This is why undergarments were usually made from washable materials such as cotton or linen, which could withstand frequent laundering. The original plan for the morning included spending time outdoors, perhaps playing a light game of badminton. However, the weather did not cooperate. Rain and damp conditions made outdoor activity impractical, and plans had to change. Instead of dressing for exercise or going out, the woman chose a house dress, also known as a tea gown. These garments were designed for indoor wear and were used by women of all social classes. Their exact style depended greatly on the wearer's lifestyle and responsibilities. For working women, house dresses were plain and practical, made without trains and cut to allow freedom of movement for household chores. For women of higher social standing, house dresses served a different purpose. They were worn for comfort while resting, reading, supervising servants, or spending quiet time at home. These garments were also acceptable for receiving close friends who visited the house, though they were not appropriate for going out. The tea gown worn here reflected this upper-class use. While not overly ornate, it was still carefully made and included a small train. Because tea gowns were never meant to be worn outdoors, they often featured delicate fabrics, pale colors, and decorative details that would not survive exposure to dirt and mud. Some were extremely elaborate, designed as much for display as for comfort. Others were simpler, depending on personal taste. This particular gown struck a balance. It was modest in decoration but elegant in cut, offering comfort while still maintaining a sense of refinement. Daytime makeup during this period was understated. Bright or obvious cosmetics were considered improper, yet most women did not go completely without enhancement. Eyebrows were often darkened slightly to give definition to the face. A small amount of rouge might be applied to the cheeks and lips, creating the appearance of a healthy, natural flush. The goal was not to look made up, but simply refreshed and lively. Jewelry choices for the daytime were equally restrained. Sparkling stones and flashy designs were avoided in the morning hours. Instead, black jewelry was especially popular, valued both for its elegance and its practicality. Earrings made from gutta percha, a natural rubber-based material, were lightweight and could be molded into bold shapes without great expense. At the neck, a brooch made of bog oak was worn. Bog oak jewelry was widely used during this time, though certain decorative motifs, such as shamrocks, leaned more toward fashion than strict daytime formality. The morning passed in a calm and unhurried manner. With no need to rush outside, the woman might spend time doing embroidery, reading, or simply enjoying the quiet of her home. These hours were meant for gentle activities, ones that matched the relaxed nature of the clothing she wore. Eventually, the weather began to improve. The rain cleared, and the light shifted, making it possible to consider going out, after all. After lunch, plans were made to meet friends for afternoon tea. Preparing for this outing did not require a complete change of undergarments, as the correct foundation layers were already in place. The tea gown was removed, and a proper day dress was selected. At this time, day dresses were often made up of separate components rather than a single piece, allowing for greater flexibility in dressing. The first part of the outfit was the walking skirt. Over this came the overskirt drapery. In the United States, it was common for these pieces to be separate garments, while in parts of continental Europe they were often attached to the same waistband. Having them separate offered clear advantages. A woman could wear the same skirt with different draperies and bodices, creating several outfits from fewer items of clothing. The drapery itself was shaped through both cutting and careful arrangement. Fabric was folded, gathered, and stitched in place, with internal tapes used to pull sections into soft pleats and controlled folds. This technique created movement and interest without adding bulk. Even when no bustle was worn, the drapery suggested a hint of fullness at the back, quietly anticipating the return of larger bustles in the years to come. Next came the bodice. For daytime wear, high necklines were the standard. In the afternoon, a slightly lower neckline might be acceptable, but it would never reveal cleavage. Lace or gathered ruffles were often added at the neckline to protect the fabric from skin oils. Sleeve cuffs were frequently made removable, attached with small stitches so they could be taken off and washed separately. Decoration on the bodice served as a clear sign of wealth and status. This particular bodice featured more than 60 yards of soutache braiding, an extremely labor-intensive form of decoration. At a time when machine sewing was making clothing more affordable, such handwork demonstrated both time and expense. With the outfit complete, indoor slippers were exchanged for boots. Boots were the most common choice for daytime wear, as they protected stockings from dust, dirt, and mud on the unpaved roads outside. Fully dressed and ready, the woman prepared to step out into the afternoon. As the final touches were applied, the woman prepared to step outside for her social call. Accessories were an essential part of the finishing look, especially for a woman of her status. A hat was placed carefully on her head, completing her ensemble. The hat was secured with hat pins, sharp and sturdy, that passed through both the fabric of the hat and her hair, anchoring it in place. These pins, often used in pairs, kept the hat secure even in the harshest wind, rendering the need to hold it while walking unnecessary. The woman could now leave her home without worry that her carefully arranged headwear would be blown away. The weather outside was cool, a reminder that the seasons were shifting. To keep warm, she added a mantle or cape to her outfit. The early 1880s marked a high point in outerwear design, with a wide variety of coats, jackets, capes, and many hybrid styles available to women. Fashion at the time celebrated the variety and creativity in outerwear, and each woman had the opportunity to express her personal style through her choice of garment. This cape, crafted from soft wool or thick cloth, was simple yet elegant, draping gracefully around her shoulders, keeping her warm while adding to the overall sophistication of her appearance. Gloves were another essential accessory when going outdoors. They not only served as protection against the cold, but were also considered a sign of refinement and social propriety. Gloves were a necessary part of the complete outfit, and they were worn on nearly every occasion, whether one was simply walking to town or attending an afternoon social event. For this outing, the woman selected gloves that matched her gown in color and tone. The gloves were crafted from soft leather or fine fabric, extending up to her wrists and, in some cases, even to her forearms. They were often a shade of white or tan, both of which were the most popular colors for daytime wear. These gloves added a final, elegant touch, their pristine whiteness offering a striking contrast against the deep hues of her gown and outerwear. Once fully attired, the woman was ready for her afternoon engagement. She left her home, stepping out into the fresh air to join her friends for tea. Social visits were a central aspect of life for women of her class. These gatherings were about much more than just food and drink. They were opportunities to cultivate friendships, strengthen social ties, and partake in lively conversation. Tea, a traditional ritual in the upper classes, provided the perfect backdrop for these social interactions. The woman felt a sense of anticipation as she walked, looking forward to the conversation and the enjoyment of being in the company of her friends. The act of gathering for tea symbolized the shared bonds of friendship, the chance to relax, and the joy of simply being together in an atmosphere of warmth and light conversation. After the social call, the woman returned to her home, where it was time to prepare for the evening. The shift from daytime to evening was marked by a ritual of cleansing and preparation. Washing up was an essential part of this transition, both for comfort and freshness. As the woman washed her face and hands, she felt the day's weariness start to dissipate. The evening required a different approach to dress, and she knew it was time to make the necessary adjustments. For evening wear, combination underwear, while comfortable, was considered too informal. Instead, she changed into a separate camise and drawers, garments that would form the foundation for her more elaborate evening attire. The most significant change, however, came with the corset. The daytime corset, while functional, was far less decorative than the evening version she now reached for. Evening corsets were often made of silk, satin, or other fine materials, adding a touch of luxury and elegance to the woman's ensemble. These corsets were designed to create a more dramatic silhouette. While tight lacing was never truly in vogue during the Victorian era, evening corsets were often worn with more restrictive lacing than daytime corsets. The result was a pronounced hourglass figure, with a narrow waist, a lifted bust, and gently curving hips. Despite its snug fit, the evening corset was designed to be worn comfortably, with enough flexibility to allow for movement and breathing, ensuring the woman could enjoy her evening without discomfort. To avoid bulk beneath the corset, she wore drawers over it. This arrangement was practical and helped keep the corset securely in place. The chemise was tucked neatly between the legs, keeping everything modestly covered, except when using the restroom. This was another of the intricate undergarment layers that Victorian women were accustomed to wearing as part of their daily routine. Each piece played an important role, working together to shape and define the body while allowing the outer garments to sit smoothly and elegantly. With the foundation garments in place, the woman next turned to her stockings. For the evening, she chose silk stockings, which were more delicate than their daytime counterparts. The stockings were often embroidered or even beaded, adding a touch of sparkle that reflected the elegance of the evening attire. Decorative garters also played a role in evening wear, often featuring intricate designs that added an element of luxury to the undergarments. The next step in the evening dressing process was the petticoat, which, like the stockings, was chosen for its ability to enhance the evening gown. In this case, she wore the same petticoat she had worn during the day, as it was the appropriate length and provided the necessary support for the gown she was about to put on. A large tie-on pocket was also added, big enough to carry a fan or any other small personal items that she might need during the evening. Now, it was time for the evening gown. Like the rest of her outfit, the gown was made up of several separate pieces. The first part was the skirt, crafted mostly from embroidered silk. The back of the skirt was lined with plain silk taffeta, a practical decision to save on fabric costs while maintaining the appearance of luxury at the front. This style was typical for the era, as the decorative elements of the skirt were often confined to the front or the visible parts, while the hidden sections remained simple. The skirt shape was close-fitting, especially at the front, but it was also designed to be graceful and fluid, allowing for ease of movement. The next part of the gown was the detachable train, which could be added or removed depending on the occasion. For evening events like dinners or formal gatherings, the train added a touch of elegance and grandeur. However, for dancing or other active pursuits, it would be removed to allow greater freedom of movement. The bodice followed, made in the Polonaise style, which was a throwback to the 18th century. The bodice and overskirt were combined, eliminating the waist seam and creating a seamless, fluid appearance. This design was perfect for highlighting the Victorian hourglass silhouette with a gently curved waist and smooth lines. Evening gowns often closed with lacing, a feature that provided both functional and aesthetic benefits. Sleeveless gowns were typically laced at the back, while those with sleeves laced in the front. The lacing was done in either a spiral or crisscross pattern, creating an elegant visual element that complemented the rest of the gown. As with the bodice, the evening gown's neckline was much lower than during the day, revealing more skin than was deemed appropriate in daylight. The evening offered a chance to show more of the body's natural curves, and this more open neckline was a key feature of evening wear. Makeup for the evening was also more dramatic. The woman darkened her lashes, applied rouge generously to her cheeks, lips, and even eyelids, and finished with a light dusting of powder. This makeup created a dewy, soft glow, perfect for the flickering gaslight that illuminated the evening's social events. The powders often carried light scents, adding a subtle fragrance to the skin. As she finished applying the final touches, the woman reached for her jewelry. Evening jewelry was typically more elaborate than daytime pieces, with pearls and shiny stones adorning her neck, ears, and wrists. A pair of evening gloves was added to complete the look, although these were often optional for dinner, but required for more formal events like the opera or a ball. Evening boots or slippers made of silk satin were chosen to match her gown, often embroidered or beaded to add to the opulence of the outfit. Fully dressed, the woman was ready for the evening. She had transitioned from the simplicity of the daytime to the more elaborate, dramatic attire suitable for a formal evening. The process was meticulous, with each layer carefully selected and applied to achieve the perfect look for the social evening ahead. With the final adjustments complete, the woman's full evening look was revealed, showcasing the culmination of hours of preparation. The soft glow of the gaslight transformed the colors of her attire, casting a warm yellow hue over the fabric and creating an atmosphere of elegance and intimacy. Evening colors were carefully selected to suit this lighting. Dark, rich tones like deep burgundy, sapphire, and emerald that shimmered in a dim light, paired with soft, lighter shades such as ivory, pale pink, and gold, that offered a delicate contrast. These choices ensured that she would appear just as radiant in the glow of the gas lamps as she would in daylight. The hues worked harmoniously under the soft yellow light, reflecting the sophisticated, layered look of the era, adding to the sense of timeless beauty. For a woman of her age, 28, still in the prime of life, her evening gown was made from silk satin, a material that was both luxurious and fitting for a woman who had established herself socially but was still very much at the height of youth. The gown had been carefully chosen, not just for its beauty, but for the way it would respond to the soft warmth of the evening light. Light fabrics, such as muslin, lace, and tulle, might have been chosen for summer or younger women, but in the colder months, the rich textures of silk, satin, moire, and embroidered fabrics were far more fitting, reflecting the deep colors and the dignified yet youthful maturity of the woman. The fabric shimmered with the movement of the evening, catching the light with a subtle glow that spoke to her elegance and sophistication. The distinction between younger women and older women was reflected not only in their clothing choices, but in the intended message of the outfit. Older did not imply age in the traditional sense, but referred to women who had moved beyond the days of debutante balls and youthful gatherings. These women, often married or socially established, wore outfits that reflected their mature status, rich fabrics, subdued colors, and designs that symbolized respectability and experience. The woman in this scene, though still in her youth, had adopted the elegance of adulthood, her gown and jewelry signaling a move toward the next phase of her life. She had entered an era of refined style, one that was both poised and socially commanding, where fashion was a statement of both personal taste and societal standing. As the evening unfolded, she entered a world of social entertainment that would continue well into the night. The dinner, conversation, music, and gentle laughter would carry on through the hours. The event was not just about food, but the opportunity to connect, to build and reinforce relationships with others in her social sphere. The clothing she wore that evening was more than just decoration. It served as a functional tool of communication. Each layer of fabric, every choice of corset, petticoat, and silk gown reflected the expectations of her role in society and her place within it. Each transition from one attire to the next was a physical and mental shift, marking different stages in the social protocol of the day. Her evening attire was a reflection of her maturity, grace, and careful attention to social norms. The journey from the simplicity of the nightgown in the early morning to the extravagant evening gown was a narrative of ritual and transformation. Throughout the day, clothing was not just about appearance, but served as an extension of the woman's identity, representing her daily roles, comfort, and status. Each garment worn, whether the delicate chemise, the tight corset, or the intricate lace gloves, spoke to the woman's relationship with the social expectations placed upon her. The day's transformation was gradual, but the evening attire marked a departure from the usual. A moment where she could fully embrace the formal social setting, casting aside the day's responsibilities and allowing her to fully partake in the pleasures of the night. As the evening finally wound down, the woman would eventually find herself alone again, the cycle of the day winding to a close. The rituals of dressing, each one deliberate and well-practiced, were now complete. The delicate fabrics would be carefully removed, hung up, and prepared for the next cycle. The gas lamps would be extinguished, and the room would fall into a quiet stillness. As the day's entertainment ended, the peaceful rituals of dawn would soon begin once more. The repetition of attire, the gentle shift from day to night and back again, signified a life lived with purpose, with each day flowing into the next with grace, ritual, and elegance. In the end, this careful balance between fashion, comfort, and social obligation was more than just a display of wealth or status. It was a deeply embedded part of identity, one that shaped the woman's life. Every dress, every accessory, and every choice made in the morning or evening served as an expression of self, of her relationship with the world around her, and of the legacy she would carry forward.